Think if the history of Earth is a 24-hour clock, humans appeared less than 8 seconds ago. For the first 7 seconds, we were the prey. We imagine our ancestors waking in a world like ours. Recognizable animals. Predictable rules. The same sun. This is a lie. The African Pleistocene was not a garden. It was a beta test for giants. A stress test for bone and sinew. A proving ground where the animals you think you recognize had been scaled, warped, and weaponized beyond recognition. The elephant standing in the heat shimmer ahead of you is not an elephant. It is Paleoloxodon recchi. It weighs 15.3 tons. 50% heavier than the largest African elephant alive today. Heavier than a Tyrannosaurus rex. The tusks extending from its skull are not curved like modern ivory. They are straight. 10 feet of bone spear jutting forward, designed for impaling, not displaying. And it is not alone. Behind it, a wall of muscle crests the hill. Cincerus antiquus, the giant buffalo. Its horns span 10 feet tip to tip. The width of a basketball hoop. It weighs 2.2 tons. It moves at 35 miles per hour. A highway speed collision wearing a bone rack. The warthog rooting near the acacia is the size of a horse. It has 4 tusks. 4. Arranged like the thagomizer of a stegosaurus, a weapon configuration that vanished with the dinosaurs and somehow resurrected itself in a pig. This is the world you woke up in. So here is the question that should keep you awake tonight. How did a primate with no claws, no armor, and skin thin enough to tear on a thorn survive a world where even the warthogs weighed half a ton? In those 8 seconds, something happened. Something that should not have been possible. But the elephants were not even the most dangerous thing on that savanna. The real horror looked almost human. The skull of Paleoloxodon was not just bone. It was a reinforced chassis, a hydraulic anchor designed to support the torque of swinging 10-foot ivory spears at lethal velocities. Consider the engineering. The parietal crests, those ridges of bone fanning across the top of the skull, functioned as attachment points for neck muscles the diameter of tree trunks. These muscles pulled against the crests like steel cables on a suspension bridge. The skull absorbed force that would shatter concrete. This was not an animal built for grazing. This was a weapon platform with tusks. The giant buffalo operated on different principles. Speed over mass. A 2.2-ton chassis accelerating to 35 miles per hour generates kinetic energy equivalent to a small car crash. The horns were not decorative. They were battering rams mounted on a gyroscopic neck, capable of disemboweling a lion with a single upward thrust. But raw size was never the most terrifying thing in this arena. Some of these creatures did not need to chase you. They just needed you to hear them. The Rusingorix did not roar. It broadcasted. Inside its skull, the nasal passages curved and looped like the valves of a brass instrument, a biological trumpet muffler that converted exhaled air into infrasound. Sound frequencies below the threshold of human hearing. You do not hear infrasound. You feel it, in your chest, your bones, your fear. This is the ghost frequency. Silent shouting that traveled miles across the open savanna, coordinating herds without alerting predators. A communication system identical to the hadrosaur dinosaurs. A design solution that went extinct 66 million years ago, and reappeared in a wildebeest. Convergent evolution. The universe arriving at the same answer through different equations. From the canopy, looking down, the ground was a death zone. Giants drifted through the tall grass like slow-moving continents. The earth vibrated with the footfall of 15-ton mammals miles away. The texture of the steppe rhino's hide, hairless, scarred, covered in sparse, coarse bristles, marked it as something industrial. Not an animal. A prototype. So far, everything we have described is an animal. But we have not talked about the most dangerous thing on the Pleistocene savanna. The other humans. 300,000 years ago, Africa was not home to one human species. It was home to at least 4. Homo naledi. The petite tree climbers. Their bones tell the story of creatures who looked up at the canopy for safety because the ground belonged to predators. Small bodies. Long arms. Fingers curved for gripping branches. They were not competing with us. They were hiding from the same things we were hiding from. Homo heidelbergensis. The robust warriors. Broader shoulders. Thicker bones. Equipped with spears and art. They painted. They hunted. They buried their dead with ritual. By every biological metric, they should have won. Homo sapiens. Us. The fresh-faced newcomers. Thin-skinned. Soft. No natural weapons. No armor. No claws. And at least one more, whose bones we are still finding. Imagine looking across a valley and seeing someone who walks like you. Who speaks in syllables you almost understand. Who makes tools from the same stones. But who is not your species. Who will never be your species. This is the uncanny valley made flesh. The primal horror of near-human otherness. And yet we are the only ones left. We did not outfight them. We did not outrun them. We out-abstracted them. We turned rocks into claws. We turned sounds into coordinated murder. We turned fire into digestion. We were not the strongest hardware. We were the first software. To understand why we became the only ones left, we need to see what the world was actually like. Not the giants. Not the other humans. The land itself. 350,000 years ago. The late Pleistocene. The savanna stretched in every direction, a carpet of yellow grass punctuated by acacia skeletons. The air shimmered with heat at noon. The nights dropped cold enough to kill an infant. There was no middle ground. No temperate compromise. This was the glitch savanna. A landscape of extreme competition where even the herbivores were hyper-aggressive predators of space. Paleoloxodon tusks stretched longer than an entire modern elephant. The giant buffalo's horns spanned the width of a basketball hoop. The warthogs stood the size of horses. The silent roar of Rusingorix rippled through the grass, inaudible but felt in your marrow. From the trees, looking down, the ground was not earth. It was a death zone. Giants drifted through the tall grass like slow-moving continents, their footfalls generating tremors that traveled through root systems, through the soles of your feet, into the base of your skull. The texture of the steppe rhino's hide was industrial. Hairless. Scarred. Covered in sparse, coarse bristles that scraped like sandpaper. These were not animals. They were prototypes. And this was not an anomaly. These creatures were the dominant configuration. The default. The normal. The animals we know today, the ones we film for documentaries and cage in zoos, they are the survivors. The leftovers after a filter passed through this landscape and selected against everything that exceeded certain parameters. A great filter. Homo naledi, gone. Heidelbergensis, erased. The giants, collapsed. The only ones left are us. And the only reason we are left is not clear. We have talked about the giants. We have talked about the savanna. We have talked about the other humans who vanished. But we have not talked about the one thing that actually matters. What was different about us? What was the variable? We assume our modernity makes us superior. Our smartphones. Our cities. Our abstract reasoning. But Heidelbergensis had art. They had spears. They had speech. They were stronger, more robust, more adapted to that world, and they still vanished. We are a biological fluke. Consider what we were not. We were not the strongest, Heidelbergensis had us beat. We were not the fastest, any of the megafauna would have run us down. We were not the most armored, the most venomous, the most specialized. We were generalists in a world of specialists. Soft. Fragile. Dependent on tools we had to carry, fire we had to tend, coordination that required constant social maintenance. And yet here we are. Remember the 24-hour clock. Humans, 8 seconds. That was framed as insignificance. As fragility. But consider the reframe. In those 8 seconds, we did not just survive the giants. We inherited a world that had already been perfected by 24 hours of trial and error. 4.5 billion years of prototyping. Of failure. Of extinction events that cleared the board and reshuffled the deck. The megafauna were not monsters. They were answers to questions the environment kept asking. How much mass can a terrestrial mammal support? How fast can bone and muscle move at scale? How can organisms communicate across distances without alerting predators? They solved these problems. They optimized these solutions. And then they vanished. And we are the first species in that entire clock, 4.5 billion years, capable of stopping it entirely. We call ourselves Homo sapiens. Wise man. But wisdom did not save the others. Strength did not. Adaptation did not. So what did? What ghost variable let us become the only humans left? And if we do not know what saved us, how would we know if we have lost it? The savannah at dawn. The giants are gone. The heat shimmer distorts nothing. The silence is not peaceful. It is the silence of aftermath.